And the book of Job is absolutely fascinating for so many reasons. There's the obvious, and many of us, when stuff starts going wrong in our life, we want to go and we want to identify with Job, and we want to attach ourselves to Job. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of lessons in here. But there's a whole lot more than just Job had it rough, he trusted in God, and everything got better. There's a whole lot more than that going on in here, in a massively positive way. But if we're going to identify with Job, we got to identify with all of Job. And I want to read right here in chapter 2, and this is again when Satan is coming before the throne of God, as the sons of God are. Satan comes among them, and he's still trying to convince God that, well, man, if you just let me have my hands on Job, he'd curse you and die. And so this second time he comes around, Satan tells the Lord, well, you won't let me hurt him, and a man will do anything to protect his own life. And so God says, well, you can have his body, but spare his life. Because remember, Satan can't do anything unless God gives him permission. And in chapter 2 and verse 7, I want you to listen to this. It says, and Satan went out from the presence of Yahweh and struck Job with terrible boils from the sole of his foot to the top of his head. And he took a potsherd and scraped himself while he was sitting on ashes. This guy was in so much pain, he was scraping boils with a piece of pottery sitting on ashes. That's a whole nother level of pain. I mean, I get to go to a hospital where nurses wait on me hand and foot, and they've got pain medicine for this and that and all this and that. That doesn't even compare to what Job is going through. Matter of fact, a little bit later, it's either in this chapter or the next, when his friends first arrive, and my wife and I were talking about this morning, they didn't say a word for 7 days because he was in so much pain. Most people can't sit there for 7 minutes and keep their mouth shut. They didn't say a word for 7 days. So going back to chapter 2, of course, Job is in all this pain. And this is when his wife says, are you still going to hold fast to your integrity? Curse God and die. And listen to how Job responds to his wife. He doesn't call her a name. He doesn't degrade her. He tells her what she sounds like. And he says, you speak as one of the wickedly foolish women speaks. So he's saying, you need to understand what you sound like right now. And then he goes on to say this very important thing, and this is what I want us to focus on. Job says, shall we indeed accept good from God and not accept calamity? So he's saying we had no problem accepting all the blessings, accepting all the good things. Shall we then not also accept when the hard stuff happens? And instead of why me, why is this happening, have an attitude of how do I use this, Lord? You know this is happening. You're well aware. You are in charge of it. You have ordained it. I don't know why. And hey, I've had this conversation many a time. But help me understand why so I can glorify you. I accept the good. I praise and get excited over the good news. Not that I'm going to be excited over bad news, but to keep it in perspective. And how do I use it? So just a reminder that if we're going to identify with Job, we need to identify with all of Job. And remember that Satan can only do what the Lord allows him to do. So that's word time for today. Have a great day.